as a missionary, I was very concerned with following the Spirit and with trying to be in tune. I feel like every missionary is. That's kind of like why you go out there. And so I was focused on that a lot. In one of my areas, this was 6 months before I came home. So I was a little bit more experienced, hopefully, by that point. I was in the city of Plzeň. It was near Christmas time. It was actually after Christmas, near New Year's Eve. It was actually New Year's Eve. And it was a P-Day. And me and my companion were preparing to leave to go email at the library. And we walk out our door and we start walking down the street. And the first thing that we hear is a man throwing up. And we see this man kind of hunched over. He has a box of wine in his hands, and he's obviously drunk. So we kind of go over to him and say, "Sir, can we help you at all?" And he's way drunk at this point. So we talk to him for a little bit, encourage him not to drink wine, so on and so forth, get his number, we move on. We get to the library, and the library is way crowded. And usually you can get a computer immediately to email, but we had to wait about a half an hour before we could get to the computer, so that kind of threw off our schedule. We were already behind from talking to the drunk man, so we were about like an hour behind at this point in our schedule. So when we walk out of the library, we had originally wanted to go to lunch at a restaurant, but because of the time, we had to just go back home and get a quick thing to eat there. But on our way back, we're coming up this staircase, kind of in a park. And at the top of the staircase, coming down towards us is a family. A man and his wife and their 2 little daughters. It was a beautiful family. So me and my companion look at each other and we're like, "Elder, it's a family. We have to talk to them." So we stop them on the stairs. We introduce ourselves as missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ, and that we have a message for them about families, and that God's plan for families has been restored through a living prophet. And this lady was so interested in what we had to say about a prophet. She was like, "Who is this prophet? What is his name? Where does he live? What is this message?" And this is not a normal reaction that you get from people in the Czech Republic. Usually they look at you weird when you talk about prophets, or they kind of just patronize you and say, "Oh, that's great. Nice message." But she was genuinely interested. And I remember feeling the Spirit very strongly, that it was a very uplifting experience. And I think what added to that was that she invited us over the next day, just giving us her address and her number, which was really cool. And as me and my companion walked away from that encounter with them, we had the biggest smiles on our face. We were just like, "This is awesome." And that was a lot of joy that I felt from missionary work right there, just from being in that place at the right time. Because that wasn't what we planned to do, but that's just where God had kind of led us through the course of that day. And we go the next day to teach her and her family. And she lived really far away from the city. It was about a 20-minute drive. So we had met her in a place that she wasn't normally, in a city that she didn't live in. So there was a lot of coincidental events that happened here that God had put together. But what really gave me a lot of joy was when she was talking, she said that her whole life she'd been kind of on a spiritual journey, but only recently she had kind of felt she'd hit a wall a little bit. She didn't know where God wanted her to go. So she prayed to God a couple days before we met that God would show her her path. And then we met. And as I think back on it now, that is what makes that story special to me. That me, a 21-year-old missionary, was able to be an instrument in God's hands in answering her prayer. And while she is not yet baptized, at least to my knowledge, I feel like we were successful because we were there and we did answer her prayer. So maybe that would be something I'd recommend to missionaries, is to not look for success outwardly, but try to be that answer to their prayer. Be there when they need you. Because I felt that that's what made that situation so special.